Hi, and welcome to the Ask Dr. Angela show with everyone's favorite OBGYN, Dr. Angela Jones. Have you ever been just too embarrassed or shy to ask your own doctor a question about your, private stuff? Well, you have come to the right place to get straight answers. Feel free to ask Dr. Angela anything women's health related. OBGYN, she keeps it real. Pregnancy, she knows what you're expecting. Whole body health, just ask. Dr. Angela has you covered, girl. And now here is Dr. Angela.
What's good, people? This is Dr. Angela, everyone's self-proclaimed favorite OBGYN, and I would like to welcome you to the Ask Dr. Angela podcast. Before we jump into today's question, I would just like to give you all a huge shout out and thanks for just your continued love, support, and more importantly, patience. This podcast has been certainly a labor of love, and I am over the moon with excitement that it is finally up and running. Now that we have gotten that out of the way, let's jump right into today's question from my girl, Khadija, from Boston, Massachusetts. Khadija, go ahead and give us your question.
Hey, Dr. Angela. My name is Khadija, and I'm calling from Boston, Massachusetts. My question is this. So I've been currently on the Paragard copper IUD for about 3 months now, and I was wondering if it's also possible for me to be on a different kind of birth control that helps with my acne as well as regulating my period. I have noticed that my symptoms with the Paragard have been just heavier periods that last longer, as well as crampier and things like that. So I would really appreciate you getting back and answering my question. And I also just wanted to thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to do this. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
First of all, Khadija, I just want to say that I love this question. This is an amazing question. IUDs, the copper T IUD. There's so much to say about this, I don't even really know where to begin. So we'll just start with the basics. Number one, the copper T IUD, also known as the Paragard, is a 10-year IUD, i.e. it can stay in place for up to 10 years. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to leave it in that long, but it can, again, stay in place for up to 10 years. The major thing that folks need to know about the copper T IUD is that the major drawbacks, or I'm just going to say side effects, are heavier bleeding, sometimes irregular bleeding, and more painful periods. I mean, if I was going to get an IUD, who would want that? Not me. But, folks choose the copper T IUD for a variety of reasons, whether it's, a contraindication to hormones, just not wanting to put any hormones in their body. The reasons that people select this type of IUD are numerous. The one thing that I will say about IUDs in general, however, is that outside of the United States, IUDs are the number one form of contraception. So good for you, Khadija, for giving an IUD a chance. The other really nice thing about IUDs in general is that it takes compliance right out of the equation. Generally speaking, I have found that compliance is the number one determining factor with regards to what patients will generally choose as their form of contraception, i.e., contraception or birth control is only going to be as effective as the user. Certainly with the IUD, once it's inserted, there's no fuss, no muss. You don't have to remember to take anything. It's there for 3, 5, or 10 years, depending on which form of IUD you decide. Now, Khadija, the really brilliant thing about the question that you asked is that, frankly, I had never even given a consideration to using another form of birth control with the copper T IUD. After all, it is non-hormonal. And, you reached out to me via Twitter, thank God for social media, and your inquiry really, it just made me smile because I hadn't quite thought of it myself. Specifically, there's really no reason that you could not use something like a low-dose oral contraceptive pill or birth control pill to kind of temper some of the symptoms that are typical of an IUD, specifically the painful periods and the irregular bleeding. But more importantly, some of the benefits of being on something else like a birth control pill, i.e. helping with acne, you could still get those benefits theoretically by adding something like a low-dose birth control pill and using your copper T IUD. So yes, yes, and yes to your question. Can you use a low-dose birth control pill and still be on the IUD? Specifically the copper T IUD? Abso-freaking-lutely. Khadija, I just want to say thank you so much for submitting your question. It was brilliant and quite thought-provoking. I'm sure that there are a lot of listeners out there who were wondering the same thing. I hope that I have answered your question to your satisfaction. You probably got more than you bargained for with regards to information about the copper T IUD. For those of you who would also like to ask a question and have it featured on the Ask Dr. Angela podcast, you can do so by going to www.askdrangela, that's AskDrAngela.com. If we do feature your question on the podcast, we will send you an amazing t-shirt. Khadija, someone will be reaching out to you shortly to get your information, t-shirt size, so that we can get that right to you. We're going to wrap up today's episode with an inspirational thought of the day. Quite frankly, I was walking around in my fatigues today, my cutoff fatigues, and I was really in kind of a G.I. Jane-ish mode. And that old Army commercial, "Be All That You Can Be," really has kind of been my theme today. So I am going to challenge you all until we meet again to be all that you can be. Now, I'm certainly not telling folks to go and join the Army, although I am so grateful for what our men and women in the armed forces do for us and the services and the protection that they provide. But I want you all to challenge yourself to live up to your fullest potential. And no one knows quite what that is other than you. Until next time, look better, feel better, be better. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for listening to the Ask Dr. Angela podcast. For more information on women's health and the show notes for this episode, please visit Dr. Angela at www.askdrangela.com. While you're there, don't forget to leave your own message for Dr. Angela. See you soon! All of the information provided and discussed in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and should not take the place of consulting a physician. This podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases or illnesses and does not and should not replace treatment for a medical professional. Listening to and participating in this podcast does not create a doctor-patient relationship between you and Dr. Angela Jones. If you need medical advice or assistance, you should consult a physician. Listening to and participating in this podcast is subject to the terms and conditions posted at drangela.com/terms.